Hello everybody and welcome to today's Creator Space online workshop. So today we'll be looking at Intro to Visual Effects in Film. So really excited to be able to bring this workshop to you guys and to be able to delve into some of the concepts. We've been getting a lot of questions about how to do some of these things and to review them. So this is going to be a great overview of these introductory concepts in visual effects in film, and also on really focused on the post-production side of things because you can, essentially I'll refer to footage that we've already shot or that you can capture, and you can always reference our library of existing workshops in cinematography and using the Blackmagic cinema camera and all that really cool stuff. So so we'll really be focused on more of the post-production, but the concepts is the visual effects. And at the end of the day, you're shooting things with a camera, and then you need to be able to to put these together, and that's in the post-production stage. So that's what we'll be covering overall. So it's going to be a really in-depth introduction, but we'll get over, go over all these key concepts that can be used, and just, knowing what you need to do, and then being able to prepare so you get the right types of footage and shots so you can create this magic after. So it's really a great way to do it. So I just want to start off and, in terms of going over what the project, all our partners in this project. So we have the Canada Council for the Arts, and we also have our library partners. And this is where you can access the equipment I'm going to talk about shortly as well. So it's the Blue Mountains Public Library, Collingwood Public Library, and the Wasaga Beach Public Library. So those are our partners in this project in terms of getting this all together and being able to bring it to you. So, today what we're going to look at is we're going to go over what are visual effects. Then we're going to look at green screen, blue screen production, image compositing, split screens, keyframes and effects in post-production. And we'll have a bit of, the chat window is always open, so you can always, if there's any questions you have specifically, you can just, can jot down a question there, and I can get to it at the end, or even if I see things during it, I can get into things as you have questions. So feel free to keep that conversation going as well. The great thing is once we finish doing this workshop, you'll be able to rewatch this, right, with the same link. So it's recorded, and then it's there for you to enjoy and review. So don't feel stressed to take a lot of notes and everything. You'll be able to rewatch this after. So just sit back and we'll go through this stuff. So here's the first thing. So, really green screen, blue screen production. Let's delve right into that. So on the first note, digital cinematography equipment. The equipment that I'm talking about are the means to be able to create this. It's available through our library partners. So at the Blue Mountains Public Library and Wasaga Beach Public Library, there is digital cinematography equipment that you can access and use. And that consists of the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K. And then it also consists of a video tripod. So that video tripod is really important because when you're doing any kinds of visual effects, usually we have what's called locked off cameras. So the idea is that if you have something on a tripod, it's not moving and it's locked. And that way you can do a lot of these visual effects quite easily. The more the things the cameras have to move, the more complex it gets with tracking and a whole slew of other different aspects to consider. We also have the newer 480 LED lights, and those are about a 500 watt equivalent, and comes with stands. And then there's some green screen options. So each library carries some green screens that they've brought in somewhere through our project, but also through what's already available at the library. Now, green screens are really cost effective. You can buy these for $20, $10. You can just get fabric. You can use something, and it can really, as we'll demonstrate, it can be different shades roughly. Now, the main thing, the concept with green screen is to ensure that it's not the same skin tone or costume tones they're using. So let's say a character's dressed in a green, like the Green Hornet, you wouldn't want to do a green screen because then the Green Hornet's costume is going to be eliminated in the compositing. So that in that case, you use a blue screen. So always that's something to think about. If you're specifically doing something with like a big green dinosaur as like a character, you don't want to be using a green screen. You would then go to blue screen, and that's why you see the use of blue or green. And the idea is that those colors aren't in our actual skin tone, so that if you remove it, the actors can stay without being removed or becoming transparent. So that's a really key concept there. So again, this equipment you can just go and access. You need to take a proficiency test that's available online through our website, then you can access all of that equipment. So what is green screen? So green screen is the use of a green color, or as I mentioned, it could be a blue color, to create a transparent background or alpha channel. and that can have a different background or element, replacing what is green. So by putting someone in front of a green screen, we can then put a different background. So for example, you can film someone in a forest with a green screen. So you have that grass and maybe trees in the foreground, put a green screen behind them, and then you can add like a canyon or rivers or things like that that don't exist in that space. So that's the cool thing. We're creating, we're making spatial blends from different areas, different locations. It could be even also in a studio. And the cool thing is that we're able to then bring these things together and create new shots with these two different shots. So here's just a little bit more notes so you can just see that the concept of using green or blue is based on what is mainly in the image. So humans, generally we don't have a lot of green or blue in our skin tone, again, except if we're painted green as a character or our costumes. So that's why it's been used as an ideal solution to get rid of, to be able to essentially create an alpha, and that means it's an outline. By removing just the green, you get a nice clean outline without doing a lot of work. And we see this regularly in like weather reports. So you see, the weather person talking, they have a green screen, there's a map and they're talking around it. And that's, how they can present the weather. So that's a typical green screen that we see all the time when there's weather reports being made. Okay, so green screen with a background. So you can achieve it with paper, fabric, even paint. So you can paint green walls and use that as well. A background stand and kit is an easy way to achieve this without having to do a lot of extra work, and it's very portable. And the libraries have a lot of these types of kits and background stands through different programming and so on. And again, very cost effective. You can buy a lot of these things for $30, $40. Background kit stands with green screens. They're very, very common and simple. So do check it out. They're not an expensive endeavor to go over, and also reach out to all our libraries and they'll be able to help you with what equipment is available there too. So lighting for green screen, you want to really create the same kind of idea that you don't want any kind of shadow on the green screen. You want it nice and full and bright. So a great way to do it if you don't have a lot of lights to practice is to do a green screen outside. And that way you can just use the sunlight on the green and it's really nicely evenly lit and you're not worried about that. So that's a great way to start practicing with a green screen, is to actually, if it's a nice day, go outside and do it. Then you want to ensure that one light's not brighter than the other on the background. And then, soft lighting's a little bit better. And you want to use lights that are behind the subject, and making sure that the subject's not too close to the green screen. That's always good, a little bit of separation. And then we go right into lighting the subject, same as we've talked about in other cinematography courses, 3-point lighting, shaping the person and working on that. So it's separate lighting than the green screen. So, what is 3-point lighting? You have your key light, your main light, your fill light, your secondary light, and your backlight, your separation light. This is that kind of chart. And then essentially you see the cameras there in front, and in the background you'd have the green screen, I would say, 2, 3 to 4 meters behind the person. So you want a lot of space to do this. And again, that's why outside can work. So if you're dealing with a small space at home or in a garage or something, it might not be big enough. But if you do take it outside, that could work really well. And then that background, the green, is lit separately. So it could just be lights from the side, from the top, and you're getting a nice clean lighting design. And that way, it's not too, the more shadows, the harder it is to sometimes figure out how that's going to work, and making sure that the software can identify what is the green that you want to remove, or the blue. So that brings us to, so let's say we've shot, you shot this green screen, you put the green screen up, you film that. And again, that's a really great visual effects concept. And then a lot of the other things we'll look at today are just things that you'd shoot regularly, except maybe for the split screen, something that takes a little bit of planning. So image compositing, essentially, taking 2 different video images and you bring them together to create a new image. And that's called the composite. So that is literally the compositing. So you're taking 2 images, you put them together. Now that could be, again, one image with a green screen, you remove the green, and then underneath you have an image of, like I said, a waterfall or a canyon that you're bringing into that as the background. So you can, in terms of image compositing, there's a few things I want to identify here. So there can be green screen keying. That's usually called chroma keying, because chroma is, you're removing that specific color. And again, green and blue are the standards that work really well with skin tones. But you could use other colors. For example, if you're doing something with, let's say, limes, and the green wouldn't work, so you could be going into some whole other color, because if there's no person in it. So, you know, it could really be based to be, it could be a red screen technically too. That's the cool thing. So chroma keying is taking out a specific color, and then it should create a nice alpha, and we'll see what that looks like shortly. Then you can do image rotoscoping, and that means you're literally, you can, you know, if I'm sitting here right now, you can cut all around me with points and cut me out and then have the background removed, transparent behind me, and put a new background. But rotoscoping can be really complicated and complex, and we can do it in the Resolve software, Blackmagic DaVinci Resolve, the one that we're going to demo with, but you have to then adjust for each movement. So if I'm staying perfectly still, it could be really easy. It's really easy for still images. So let's say you're putting in, you know, like a video screen or a TV screen, and you're putting in that image into a TV. That could work really well. The other thing is if you, every time I'm moving, I have to create new rotoscoping. So you often hear that, but this is, you know, a lot of films that have a lot of this kind of, they can't always do a lot of green screen work, and then they need to cut the person out or put new images behind them, or let's say cut stuff out, then they're going to add wings to this character, or all sorts of crazy things in terms of visual effects. You need to rotoscope. So that's literally someone going through and keyframing. There's some software assistance, but you have to keep putting points around the person and basically creating a cutout that's perfect for each frame. So 24 frames per second, right? So you got, you know, every 10 seconds, 240 frames. That's a lot of frames. So each one has to be rotoscope. So that's why you'll notice sometimes the visual effects shots, they might be a little bit shorter. And again, just how do you work with that? So, you know, it could be really, that's the kind of the more on the complex side. Then we can also be just doing some blending elements. So we can be doing things like dissolves, fades, and superimpositions. So by superimposing on top of one another, we can be working with, you know, the transparencies of one image over the other. We can be creating this kind of montage effect where we can see even more than 2 layers of video, 3 or 4 layers, and they're all, you know, blending together nicely. So that could be something that works with the transparent layers and working that method, and that could always be really cool. So let's have a look. I'm just going to switch over here to the Resolve software. So let me just pull this up. I have a project opened up, and so, you know, what does it mean? So let's look first at like a green screen, and I have some cuts here. So I have a green screen demo here, I think right here. Okay, so this is something that was shot, and we're going to look at the elements individually. So this is what it looks like before. So this is the shot with the green. This is a background shot. And I had a couple concepts here. So one thing to think about is when you're doing the background shot, if you know this is going to be the background shot, I intentionally did a blur, or it could be in focus. So, you know, these are the fun things. When you're doing visual effects, if you know that something's going to be a background, you can technically shoot it out of focus. And I know that's contrary to what we're always talking about, and best practices, you know, to keep something in focus, but you can intentionally keep your background blurred. And that way, when you put it together, it can really work. So how does this get put together? So here's kind of here's a final, right? And now let's look at you know, how we put this together. So I'm going to take this shot right here, and then so what I'm doing here, I'm just going to demonstrate this. So I have video 2 is the green's going to be on top on video 2. Video 1 is going to be our background. So that's how we're compositing. We're going to put those two images together. And then I'm going to put this background underneath. So you can see right now I just have this and I have that. But we can't see through it. And this is where the magic happens. So then we take this top layer, I'm going to highlight that, and then I'm going to zoom in here. What we're going to do is go to this fusion button here. And what this gives us is now we're working with this top layer, and we can add effects. So we're going to do things such as a node. We're basically going to right click here. I'm going to add a tool, and I'm going to go to the where are things? Matte. There it is. Under matte, and we're going to go to the ultra keyer. And what the ultra keyer that lets me do is I'm going to go over here, take this magic wand, and again, it's not complicated. You can again rewatch this, and you'll see going step by step. So I'm adding the add a tool, right click in between. So this is telling me this is the shot, this is the stuff that happens to the shot, and then it gets output here. So it's like kind of a factory, you know, it's like an assembly line, and I'm just adding, I can add a bunch of tools. So this is one very kind of more simple, straightforward, just chroma keying, a way to do it. And there can be, I can have 100 nodes, and it can get really complicated where I have, explosions and different rotoscoping and all sorts of layers. So it's kind of unlimited what you can do in Fusion. So think of it as kind of like a hyper version of a super version of After Effects, and you can do tons of stuff with it. And a lot of films and Hollywood films will use Fusion for compositing work. Really great tool. Okay, so now on here, I'm going to say, okay, let's choose the background color, and I need to figure out what it is. So I'm going to take this eyedropper, and as you can see, if I click right away, look, it goes transparent. So now it's selected that green, and I'm going to go back to the edit window, and that's it. I have now removed the green. That's how simple it is. And I have a beautiful composite of the foreground, that character, those two characters sitting there, and I have the background out of focus, slightly blurred, and it's working that way. So that's a really cool, straightforward way to do it. Now I can do the same thing. So I'm just going to copy that effect, so we don't have to do that again. I'm just going to paste it over here on this side. Okay, and then I'm going to take the background that's not out of focus. So I'm going to bring that down, and this is what it looks like when that background's not out of focus. So we got this one, and we got this one. So now what I can do is, technically, we can do another effect. And where are our effects? So under editing, we go over here to effects, and it shows up right here. And you can see I can put different blurs on. Lens blur, it gives you the same kind of effect. So I'm going to just bring that on, and look at that. I've now added the blur effect, and I've blurred the background in post-production. So that's, again, under effects, you can go to open effects, all the video transitions, all our effects, both audio and video, are all under this effects panel, and you just drag them into whatever image you want the effect to be on. Then the effects are actually stacked in here under effects, so each image will have its effects listed. So you can see this one has no effects because we did that in the Fusion tab, its own software, and this one has the effects here, right? So that's all pretty cool and works nicely. Again, not the most basic effect, but it is one of the most essential tools that a lot of times I find using a lot of this kind of green screen chroma keying that has to happen to put shots together and composite shots, and that works really nicely. Okay, so now let's look at, I think I have a plate demo here too. So this is another thing that can be done. So this one here, let's look at the original screen elements. Okay, so this is what it looks like, the first original shot. Then I have a background footage, raft going down slowly, like that. But I decided that I want the water and the raft to not be there, and I just want the water to be going here instead. So I've just done this composite really nicely, quickly. So I've green screened, I've put this on top. You can see, so there's the original. I put that on top, and I can change the water. And that's basically what's called a plate, where you're using a background and then you can put different images. And then from here I can add more and more from there. So it's a great tool to be able to use chroma keying with existing. You can buy stock footage that has the green screen stuff on it. You don't even have to shoot. You can have stock footage that has that's pre-made with green screen. So that can be sometimes explosions, forests, all sorts of things. So it's a really cool way to do things. So this is another sample. So this was, just people on a beach, green screen, and then putting a different background. So again, that's that, and then this is the people, and they're transparent. See, like that is what's called the alpha. So there's nothing behind them. It's just black. That's transparent, and then I add that layer behind them, and all of a sudden they're at a beach, right? And this is just stock shots, and nothing that I didn't shoot these, but these are just stock shots, and it works really nicely to be able to put that together. Another way you can do it is, you're putting green screens, putting a TV image on top. So you know, people here watching this green screen TV. That's what it was, right? And then you know, you can take out the green and then you know, have the TV placed on top as a background. So again, there's the background, right? That just putting it like that. Different ways you can do this, right? But that's a really cool way to do that. Okay, so that takes us through the compositing section. So the next thing I wanted to look at is something called split screens. So split screens are, you know, something that's always really interesting. Before I get to the keyframe here, I'm going to go, let's create a new timeline. Okay, so split screen, we can take, let's say, I'll take some, I can take a couple shots from here maybe. Okay, so let's take this shot and we'll bring that in here. Okay, so that's one shot. And let's take another shot, put it on top. Okay, so then what we can do is by selecting this, over here in our video tool on the top right, this is where we can do all the different control points. And what we can do is we can go to this cropping tool right here, and I can crop things. So I can take out the right side, right? So we can put a split screen, and then we can also make it soft, so you don't really see. And, you know, you can put different people side by side, and you can see what, you know, what can be done, and in terms of, you know, being able to put people together or elements together, right? So that's just I wanted to demonstrate that idea. And this is oftentimes you'll see, you know, there's shows like that where you see, you know, someone, let's say there's twins, so one actor can play both people. You can shoot just the left and then just the right, and you split screen and put that together. So that's another way to composite, is to put these types of split screens together. And what we can do too is, if I take the same idea, let's take our people on the beach, for example. I'm going to paste them down here. And we can take this one and paste it here. So now what I can do is I'm going to select this one and I'm going to crop out the person on the right. I'm going to take this one and I'm going to move it all the way over here. Okay, and then I'm going to take that background, put it underneath. So now what I've done is, this is the split screen. So I've taken this person on the left, and this other person on the right, and then I've been able to split screen that out. Now, as you're seeing here, there's probably a little bit of work that can be done in this here. And so I can just adjust it to make sure I don't have any spill. And you'll see what you want to do is really not have, adjusting these colors will make sure that it's very, you know, it's a good clean mask, we'll call it. See, so that now we had a really nice clean separation of our goat and person, and there we go. So that's our split screen. We've put two things together, split them, put them together. So again, not the most complex things, but the tools that we can do this with are all available right here in the video idea, the video panel, where we can do cropping and all of these kinds of elements. So now let's take it back a sec here and just look at, you know, what happens when we want to just do, you know, maybe we want to do something a little bit simpler. So here's what the split screen looks like, right? I'll just split that side. Here I'm going to just press the reset button. I'm going to reset that. And sometimes, you know, we want to have things that are a little bit simpler. So we can look at basic transitions. And these are great effects too. So we can do things like a cross dissolve. We just drag it in here. and that dissolves from one shot to the other. And I can make it longer. That's that cross dissolve, that kind of classic cross dissolve. I can also do a dip to color instead. It's going to dip to black, then undip like that. And that's where we can add all of these nice transitions. And again, these are visual effects. This is a blur transition from one to the next. We can do a smooth cut. It's trying to create something. An additive dissolve. Let's see what that looks like. Kind of goes up and down, right? And then we can do things like, like an iris. It's kind of a little bit of a cheesy effect, but those kinds of things. We can do these like, these kind of Star Wars transitions where things get pushed over, right? And it can be that can be faster, right? So I can just make that like 2 seconds. Push over back to the scene. And all these really cool things. So you find all of these right here, and then you can add like different concepts of what things can look like. So we can do a film strip. See what that looks like. So kind of looks like the film's how is a little bit of a the film's transitioning. This is a paint on, right? So all these little fun pan down. So you can try all of these types of effects. That's kind of cool. Tunnel of light. You can do a zoom in, so it's going to like zoom into it. That's pretty cool. You can do a zoom in and out. Right, so you can see a lot of really fun transitions that can happen. Burn, right? So all these visual effects, you just drag and drop them over, and that's how we can capture these elements and make it all work. So that's on that side of things. So perfect. So that's essentially, so that's our green screen. So we have compositing, we can split screen, we can crop things, and then we can layer things. And then we have all these transitions. So the dissolve, dip to color, where it dips to black, comes out of black. We can do fade outs, and then we can also look at working on different layers in terms of creating like transparencies or superimpositions, if you will. And that can work as we get into some of this keyframing ideas. So again, any of those effects as they show up, I'll just drag that in there again. So they show up here. You can click on them, and then you can do, they'll show up here under the transition, and you can change what they do. So you can, figure out what kinds of the edge, the appearance, how much melt, the charcoal colors, like everything can be adjusted. So if you don't want it to be too red, you can make it less red. So all of these kinds of elements are there. So what's really cool is that how you can, this piece. So if I just click on here, I'm just going to zoom in on the timeline here with the plus. These things can you can make them bigger, and it tells you how long it is. So it says it's 1 second, and we can do all these kinds of elements of what happens with it. Okay. So one thing I should mention too is like when we think about visual effects, we've talked about color grading in the past. So that's also another important is what aspect is if are you going to make a specific look for a film, and that could be maybe blue green. It could be very warm, black and white, desaturated with a hint of pink. All these things, that's a visual effect as well. And now it's really simple. We can do with a click a button. We can make things black and white. We can make things, do different things. So I'll go over here to Open Effects, and I can go. I can do things like, let's say, I can add a lens flare, and that's cool. It can be a lens flare. I can put lens reflections like that, right? And it's pretty neat. Like it's moving around as stuff happens, right? Just Command Z, I'll get rid of those. So that's really cool. We can also do, there can be things to help stuff. So like I can go, noise reduction if something's happening. Then we can do things like this, scan lines. We can stylize it, pencil sketch it, make it into a pencil sketch. So you can quickly create, these kinds of visual effects that are, interesting and effective, and just, mirror. So what I was trying to do with the split screen, you can just do this kind of mirror effect. He's walking into himself, coming out. Really cool things that can be achieved. And then a vignette. That's a really nice tool that sometimes we like to, I love putting this on sometimes. How much of a vignette should it be? That's here's the size, right? We can figure out. It could be subtle and softer, harder, right? All these kinds of tools. So a vignette can be really nice because puts a different perspective, almost a little spotlight on something. Watercolor, so you can make the whole image to look like a watercolor painting, right? And then we can do things like smears, motion trails. But one thing that's really cool is we can do things like film damage. So putting this on, and then we can it has all like the scratch lines and just to look like old film. And that's always a really nice quick tool to use. And it has a little vignetting on it too. We can just add a basic like film grain. That can be done too. So I'll get rid of the film damage, but we can have film grain. You can decide what kind of film stock you want to use. And you can see like the grain, how much grain shows up. You can see there's a lot of grain coming in. And it gives you that film grain look. So there's a little bit of film grain depending on what you're doing. So that could be really effective. Right? And on and on and on. So tons and tons of tools. You just go to this, video effect here. Ripples, lens distortions, all sorts of really, really cool tools. So that's all under the open effects. Then there's, I think, some filters, effects. You can put like binoculars on, closed circuit TV. This puts like, it makes it look like you're on a camera. So that's a really cool effect as well. Camera 4, right? Look how easy that is to do. Just basically put that on. Digital glitch we can put on too. So it's like glitching, doesn't work really well, right? So then we have things like a drone overlay, right? And we can have a DSLR, so it looks like we're shooting through a camera. Night vision, a video call, and video camera. Really, really cool templates. And then binoculars. So yeah, and colored border, so you can just put like a white border on. So great quick templates. You can just drag and drop them right on, and they're ready to go. And then you can adjust all of them as you desire to. So that's a wealth of templates and things that we can do there. So the last thing I wanted to show is in terms of keyframing. So I have a little sample footage here. So what we can do is under video, we can then do all of this effects work. I showed you the cropping tool, but we can do this transform stuff. And transform lets us zoom, it lets us position the shot. We can rotate the shot, we can pitch and yaw it, we can flip it. So, we can flip the shot around, we can make it upside down. Really quick tools like that. But we can also do something that's called keyframing. So up here, I can initiate the keyframe. That's what this tool does here. This is the reset. So if I don't like it, I can always reset it. And essentially, if we want to do something like, let's say, a zoom, a digital zoom, that could be really effective. Maybe, we shot something, we want to add a little bit of a zoom. So I'm going to click this. Right now, our zoom is 1 1.0. So that means it's basically zero. It's at one to one. No zooming has happened. I'm going to move forward and say, okay, what if we want this shot to slowly zoom? So I'm going to just go to the end, the last frame, right? So this is the next shot. Here's the last frame of that shot. And now I'm going to, because I had that initiated, what I'm going to do here is make a zoom. And what happens now is, watch, it goes from 1 and it's slowly moving up to what I decided it should go to. So this is a digital zoom with just, 2 keyframes from a starting point to an end point. This gives me a really cool digital zoom, and it looks like we're doing it camera zoom. So this is a great way we can, fix things, and you'll see a lot of this kind of stuff happening in terms of, a lot of effects work out there. A lot of times it's a great tool. So what if happens if I maybe want to kind of pan up and over to this way as well? So you see again, this position is 0, and now the position's moving, and so I'm slowly zooming in, and I'm repositioning as well, because as I zoom in, it gives me more area within the frame that I can move around in. So this is the zoom and pan up, and it's going to that screen. Maybe that screen has something important. Let's move seniors. It looks like he missed his seniors move meeting in that, right? So the shot has new meaning. So let's do that again. So I'm going to, again, initiate this. And let's start the other way, where I want to zoom out. So let's start all the way in. And I'm going to kind of reposition so it's like here. Maybe a little bit more like this. That's my start point. Let's go to the end. And here, and I'm going to click that, the keyframing there, and I'm going to say, let's zoom out. And I'm going to go back to like essentially the something like that. So now we're going to start zoomed in, and you can see I'm slowly zooming out now digitally. The keyframe, and the camera move that already exists is there. So I don't have to change that, but I'm just creating this new shot. So I started zoomed in on the keyframe, and then I zoom out. And that's it. So let's look at this now. What happens if I want to do something a little bit earlier? So let's say he comes in here. I'm going to, again, initiate that keyframing tool. I'm going to play, and I'll stop there. And I'll say, okay, at this point, maybe I'll say, okay, I want to really be, oh, I was on the wrong one there. Okay, so I'm clicking this clip, that we want that orange, highlight the clip you want to work with. And I'm going to go, okay, at this point where he drops the book, I want to be zoomed in. So let's have a look at what that looks like. So I'm going from 1 to boom. Okay, and then maybe from this point, I want to start to zoom out again. And I'll go to the end. And by the end, I want to be back to 1 roughly. That's the cool thing. When you're digitally zooming, you don't have to be just a 1-to-1. We can always change it. So I'm going to zoom in. He drops the book off. He comes by us, and then I zoom back out. And it looks like we've done the zoom. And again, that pan, we're panning with the camera. Then I'm zooming in digitally, and that's something that, this was this shot with the Blackmagic cinema camera, just using the prime lenses. So they're not zoom lenses. They're just fixed focal length. So I think that was a 35 millimeter. So the digital zoom lets us go then in and out. And that's a great way where we can do a great way to create these kind of extra movements in terms of the digital zooming and digital techniques and things like that. So that's really a interesting way that we can do, this kind of keyframing work. And then we can do things like this too. So let's say, I just want to mention this is a really great tool. So sometimes if the camera is a little bit shaky, we can do something that's called stabilize. And that will let us, stabilize a kind of a handheld if something's kind of your handheld and it's a little bit runny, you put stabilize, it'll try to smooth it out. It zooms in and it tries to stabilize the image. So there's a lot of fixing tools as well. Just like here with the open effects, you can do tons of things, such as, let's see, where are they? Automatic dirt removal, chromatic aberration removal. So that usually happens if there's like rings due to like, pixel count in the image of a specific video. Dead pixel fixer, that's gonna, if something's just, there's a kind of, you'll usually see like a white dot if the sensor has a dead pixel. Deflicker, sometimes flickering can happen on a television set. And noise reduction. So if something gets a little bit too noisy, we can try to, it removes a lot of the noise. So there's a lot of this patchwork as well. And so those are really cool things too on the visual effects side. So that's really the main elements there. So we can do all this kind of compositing. We can do all our, so Fusion, the built-in compositing tool right there, Fusion, add the node. We can do things in the timeline by adding all these different effects. So we go to the effects palette, then you can find all these different effects. Then we can do transitions. We can do split screens. We can do split screens also with the green screen. So we can have two green screen elements, composite. You can have multiple layers. And I think that's the thing too, is to remember that we can have so many different layers. And that's what I want to show here. Look at if we take these things, I'm just going to copy them, paste them over behind here. And we can take all these shots and start to, I'm going to put them all on top of each other like this. And maybe this one I'll put a little bit later here. And then what we can do is we can start to look at, okay, what does each one do? So we can say, okay, I'm going to just drag this one down a little bit. And here I can just go to each one and I can do these little dissolves right in here. So this is a dissolve tab. So now I'm going to see the transparency underneath. So I can create these really nice long dissolves. And so we can start to like montage elements over one another. And watch what this looks like. So that's what I did. So I just did little dissolves, dissolve, dissolve, right? And it's layered. So because it's layered, this is what it ends up looking like. So it's gonna, I'm doing that. I'm gonna dissolve to like, it's almost kind of a flashback. He's coming out of his car. And you can see this superimposition, and then that kind of sees the whole thing. And then I'm going to go to the next image where he's coming back to the library, returning the book, and then we're going to end off with, and then he's like frustrated again. Oops. So that's what we can do, is we can create these really neat, superimposition elements. So it kind of brings the book, and then we're dissolving back out to this image here. And those are, again, it's not complicated. We're just have a few layers, a few dissolves, and create these beautiful montages of images. So again, this is 3 shots playing kind of with time and space. He's going in and out, confusion. That really can help the story. You can be doing it with multiple layers. So let's say, I had different layers of flowers and you wanted to montage them together as they're blooming, or different colors and all of that. So that's another great technique, is that multi-layered superimposition using dissolves. And that's, we see that a lot in films and opening title sequences. We'll see a lot of that kind of work where the layers are going together, and we're seeing these kind of title sequences and images come in and out. So that kind of, again, it's a compositing, because we're putting all these tracks together, the video layers, and then we're dissolving them and playing with them in each one. So, really, really great elements you can do. So yeah, let's get into, we got some time here, so let's get into some of the Q&A and stuff. So I have some questions here. So in terms of watching the color grading correction tutorials, so you can access it. Definitely please continue on with this visual effects exploration. You can go to our website, tbmcs.ca. And there you will be able to go to our YouTube channel, and then you'll find a whole, I think there's about a dozen color grading type tutorials now, webinars. And you can then go to our YouTube channel and find them right there. We're also going to be getting modules up on our website, and then you'll be able to access that and follow along in a self-paced learning modules using those same templates or those same webinars. You'll be able to do that as well. Now, in terms of, these are always good questions, like in terms of the tools, I'm showing, so this is Blackmagic DaVinci Resolve. This is a totally free software. You can just download, you go to their website, blackmagicdesign.ca, I believe, for here. And you can go there, download the software. And the next thing is you can also go to our library partners where there's iMac computers at each library, and you can just do the editing there. So you can do everything I showed here on a computer at these 3 library partners that is built for video editing. So it has RAM, solid state drives, or RAID drives configured, so you can do up to like 4K video. So I'm demonstrating on a similar on a Mac Mini, and 32 gigs of RAM, and being able to play a lot of the stuff in real time with multi-layers. So that's, we have that available. But the software, if you have a good computer that can handle it, and the good news is if you download it, you'll be able to try it out. It won't let you install it if your computer can't work with it. So if it doesn't meet the minimum specs, the software won't get installed. So if it installs, then your computer can work with the software, no problem. Now, in terms of iMovie, there are other tools, things like iMovie, and you can do the same thing with these dissolves and layer them up. And they have some green screen templates as well, so tools. So it has that. It won't be as advanced like the Fusion, but you can do these same things, split screens, dissolves. It lets you do that all. So the dissolves are very similar to the timeline where you're just doing these transition. There's little transition tools. You can move them, expand them, and add more dissolves. And there's a tool set on the side. On our YouTube channel, we do have iPad editing as well, and that goes over all those basic transitions as well. So do check that out. Go to our website, check out our YouTube channel. You'll be able to see more stuff there. So that's really the the effects and intro to visual effects, going from green screen, going to compositing, doing the post-production work, making it all happen, and being able to add a lot of these effects and transitions, and comfortably creating movie magic. And that's really the cool thing here. And I should note, so really what we're using is Blackmagic DaVinci Resolve is the software, and that it's a great tool set, and it's totally free, so check it out if you can. And that Fusion tool that's in the software is quite advanced, but it can be just as simple as doing that chroma keying like I demonstrated. So feel free, you can rewatch this, and go over it, and then you can always email me, tom@tbmcs.ca, if you have any other questions, and rewatch it, go over it, and try some stuff out. You can find a lot of green screen template and sample footage online, so download some. You don't have to shoot it all right away yourself, but at least we went over how you'd want to film that. So if you can get a green screen going, like I said, I recommend shooting outside in the sun. You get really perfect bright green, making sure your subjects are properly exposed. You don't want anything overexposed, and then you can carry forward and make that all work. So yeah, thanks again for joining us, and I just want to thank all our partners in this project. So we have the Canada Council for the Arts, then we have our library partners, again, where you can access the digital cinema cameras and the iMacs that have Blackmagic DaVinci Resolve Studio on it. So those are the Blue Mountains Public Library, Collingwood Public Library, and the Wasaga Beach Public Library. Thanks again for joining us for the Creator Space Online, and I hope you will join us again in our next session. Talk to you soon. Take care.